Okay, good morning. I'd like to welcome you all to this webinar and I'd say thank you as well for taking your time out on such a sunny day. I know we'd all like to be out on site enjoying the sunshine today, but so thanks for taking your time out to come to listen to this webinar. The webinar today is aimed at showing you the things that have changed over the last few years whilst KeySIGN has gone forward from what was version 17 a couple of years ago, and it's now up to 19.1, which is a slight update on the version 19 that we were running last year. And it's a brief introduction of that. But first I'll just introduce myself. My name's Alan Mason, for those that you haven't seen me. I'm just making sure that's working. So I've got a couple of monitors and lots of windows around on my screen, so I'm having to click things. There we are, good welcome. My name's Alan Mason, as I was saying. I'm the product manager for KeySIGN. I'm also the product manager for some of our other products in the family, such as Keylines, KeySignals, and a few other products that we have too. I'll be presenting this webinar today, and as I said, I wanted to try and show you the differences with KeySIGN as we've gone forward to version 19. One of the things that was apparent was with the new TSRGD being released, was it last week or the end of the week before, wasn't it, that it was released, that a few of you, the users, are now finally managing to get their IT sections to come along and upgrade their KeySIGNs to have the latest version to work with the new TSRGD. So we thought there was an opportunity here to help ease the transition for those that have been, shall we say, not so quick updating their KeySIGNs and have only just recently gone up to version 19. So I haven't got much on the PowerPoint slide to show you today, so I'm going to go straight across, hopefully, if my buttons work on the screen here, over to my KeySIGN that I've already got running. So if I go over to this one, I'm hoping that will jump across now. Something's happening. Yes, that's good. So that's popped up there on your screens. So hopefully you can see my copy of KeySIGN is around on the your screen there. I'll just see if I can maximize that to fill the screen. There we go. Right. So first of all, I've got 19.1 open. This was only released a couple of weeks back, and last year we were using 19.0. So this webinar is really about the changes that have happened from version 17 to version 19. And I've got two identical looking signs on the screen, or close to identical looking signs on the screen. This one on the left has been created using version 17 of KeySIGN, and the one on the right has been created using version 19 of KeySIGN. And initially there doesn't seem to be a great deal of difference. I think if you look closely you might just see that that's piece of text there and this piece of text here, I've got some little blue tile marks around them, whereas the piece of text on the left over here, I've got the same coloured tile marks around them as the text. And the main reason for that is the types of objects that you use. There's a couple of big changes that have happened when the engine's gone forward behind KeySIGN. Namely the text that I'm highlighting there. You can see in version 17 the pop-up is saying that's a piece of text. So as we know it in AutoCAD, that's usually D text. If I go across to actually on the right hand side, which is the version 19 sign, the pop-up that pops up now, that one's not a piece of text. It's something called a KTSRGD entity ACAD, and it's basically saying we've changed the objects that we're drawing in AutoCAD. Hopefully they don't look greatly different, but you can see on the left they're pieces of text, on the right they are KeySIGN entities. It's not just the text that's changed, it's also the sign borders that have changed. So if I go over, oh sorry, that one's not. Yes, okay, so apologies for that. If I just, apologies for one moment, I'll just do a quick explode on that. It isn't quite what I was expecting to look like. I was expecting it to look like that. That was right. In version 17, it should look like that with a polyline. Whereas in version 19, again, the sign border is a KeySIGN entity. So not only have we updated the text, but we've updated the sign borders to be KTSRGD entities. So what is so special about them? The first thing I wanted to show you was the text itself. Obviously you can see quite closely the tile marks have become cyan. That's not a big wow, but it is a good indicator. When you start using KeySIGN 19, you'll notice these cyan tile marks popping up on the screen. And if anyone knows about D-text in the past, with the AutoCAD fonts, you couldn't have two colours inside a font. It was all purple, it was all white, but here you can see a piece of text that's clearly got two colours within the piece of text. One of the more important things is the fact that you can change the text. If I double click on that text, I'll come back to talking about double clicking in a little bit, you'll notice that it pops a special update sign text dialog on the screen. Previously in AutoCAD, if I zoom out again and just go across to the older piece of text, if I go to the older piece of text, if you just double click that, it's just a normal AutoCAD piece of text, and that will go into the edit text mode within AutoCAD. I don't want to do that. I wanted to show you the new bits. If I double click on this piece of text, it goes into that box. Okay, so if I wanted to change the spelling on Axley, I could change the spelling on the letters of Axley there. If I wanted to change the alignments, there's some buttons on the top called the alignments. I can even change between medium and heavy at the top there. So there's various different things we can do, but what I wanted to show you is this tab on the second tab along called representations. And the first three representations are something that's been introduced with version 19 of KeySIGN. It allows us to change the text that's displayed to outline and to real text, and back to outline and back to simple text. Quite simply, as it's represented on the screen, as it's drawn on the screen, I can switch backwards and forwards between these three different ways. The simple text is the simple skinny text line. The outline, as you can see there, is, as it suggests, it's the outline of letters. And when we go to the real text, obviously that's the coloured up lettering, the completely coloured up lettering there. So that's quite a big change. One of the big things about the coloured up letters, which we couldn't do in version 17, was alter the spelling. So if I wanted to change Axley and change it to a different word, you can see that as I'm typing letters, those letters are appearing on the screen, and as I'm deleting those letters are being taken away. So real text is now behaving just like a font. That was something that we couldn't do in 17. In version 17, it was all separate individual letters. We did use grouping to try and bring them together into a word, but you certainly couldn't alter the spelling that easy. You had to sort of go back to doing a piece of D-text, alter the spelling in D-text, and then go forward again to real text letters. Now you can see in version 19, if I want to go back to Axley and type it properly, as I'm typing the letters there, you can see they're appearing in the drawing straight away. So it's behaving just like we really wanted it to do. However many years ago, we finally got around to being able to change the spelling of coloured up letters. There is a couple of buttons to the right of these simple outlined real text, and you can see there's one there called Tiles and one there called Chapter 7 Box. Again, under the representations, if I pick Tiles, you'll notice that these blue tile marks come on. If I pick it again, the tile marks go off. If I pick it again, the tile marks come back on. So it's just a quick toggle of being able to turn on and off parts of the text. This one to the right of it, Chapter 7 Box, and you'll notice that puts a little black dotted line around it, very much like the way the text is represented in Chapter 7. If I pick Done now, and I'll show you on the route number, you'll notice a slight change on the route. We'll just pull that across into the center of the screen so you can see. Double click on that text and we'll go for the outline font, and you can see there that the B is slightly separate from the numbers because of that one stroke width gap. Well, that's very, very similar to how Chapter 7 represents the lettering and the route numbers. So that's the reason why there's a Chapter 7 box. Of course, I can turn that off and just have the outline letters. If I was cutting that out of some vinyl at the manufacturers, that might be the way I want to display it at the manufacturing end. So we've got all this ability to change the text into whatever way you want that text to be seen on the screen. And whilst I'm showing you the outline letters there for the B1991, I wanted to mention the fact that previously in version 17 we had something called the duplex font. And it was using the AutoCAD SHX font system, just as the stick text is used in the SHX font system. Version 19 we took it a little bit further forward than that, and these outline letters are a bit like the real text letters. They're actually blocks that are inserted into the drawing. So they're drawn out letters in a way. They're individually drawn letters. So you won't notice that if I was to remove some of those numbers off there. They are removed off the screen and it just behaves like a font. But the letters themselves are fully drawn out. So if I pick done now and I just go zoom in on that, it's actually a polyline that's drawn there for the outlines of the letters. It's no longer using that duplex font. And if anyone ever looked closely at that duplex font, you'll notice there's certain inaccuracies. There was only a certain level of accuracy we could get into an SHX font. Of course, when we're drawing them with a polyline in AutoCAD, we can get it super accurate. So you can see this B1991 is actually made up of really accurate outlines of the fonts. You won't find those little overlaps and blips that were visible in the old duplex fonts. So effectively, that duplex font is now redundant. It will still be installed with KeySIGN for old drawings and compatibility with old drawings. But as far as the font goes, we won't be using it again in any new text that's created. Okay, so let's just go forward a bit further on the text. I'm showing you on the screen, I've got some simple text, I've got some outline text, and I've even got some real text. In fact, that real text has got the dotted line around it as well for the Chapter 7 box. But now that we've given you so many options of variations, I'm sure one of the things you're going to say is, I really like that text. Why is it always creating me this text by default? So we've given the ability to create a setting. So I'm going to go on to, again on the text menu there's an item for text settings and defaults. And this comes up with some different options available for the default text that's created. So I quite like the outline lettering because it has a box around that shows me the extent of the tiles. It has the lettering like it looks on the sign face. So I quite like that. So I would like to use my outline lettering as default. So I could have fully coloured up lettering as default, but I think I'll pick the outline lettering as my default way. We can still colour the signs up, and hopefully I'll show you that in a moment. And if I can save that for tomorrow, I'll just set it for today's drawing though, so I'll set the session. And that should mean now, if I go to the medium text button, and I was to type in a route number now, a vertical line 1, 2, 3. At the moment it doesn't look very much different. If I press return and return to finish that off, you'll notice at the end of that process, I'll zoom in a bit closer as well on the screen so hopefully you can see that, it's created it in outline text. So that's just from the medium and heavy buttons. If I went to heavy now and I typed in a destination, so if I take in Stratford there, I know at the moment it's looking very much like D-text. Since I press return and return to finish that off, you can see that's gone to the outline lettering. Obviously the A123 there I did in medium, and that's in heavy. And that setting not only affects the medium and heavy button, but many of you I'm sure are using destination block. This was there in version 17, but if I was to pick it there and I would say, right, I want to do something like London, I want to have that down the M40, but it's going to be on a primary sign, so of course that's a motorway route which will be in a patch. And maybe I put the route below the word London. I'll pick draw, pick a point on the screen, and you can see there that again it's been created now in that outline font. So that setting has not only controlled the medium and heavy buttons, but it's also controlling the output from the destination block. So I'll just finish that off, but it's just to show you. So again, as I said, I quite like that font. Maybe one day we'll change one of the defaults, so out of the box you have that font. Okay, so another thing that's slightly different with 17 to 19 was that double click. I did mention with text that you can double click the text to alter it in AutoCAD, and if you double click the text in KeySIGN, it lets you alter the text as well, but it uses a slightly different box. There is also the ability to double click on a sign border. If I double click on that green one on the inside, you'll notice that a few different options pop up here. And this is showing you some of the things that are possible with this new border. Before I go through too many of these options, I wanted to just show you there is an option down at the bottom for adding an extra 2-stroke width at the top of the sign if it was on a gantry. So I'll pick the override, so we'll allow these to become available. You notice it was grey. Without the tick there, this is grey and I can't pick it. As soon as I put the tick on there, that becomes available. So I can put a tick on there, and you notice as soon as I put a tick on there, the border gets that additional property. Take the tick off there, the border gets that taken away. In fact, if you wanted to, if you wanted a 4-stroke width space or a bigger space on the right or something like that, there is these gaps here, which is additional spacing above and beyond the normal 2.5, or and the bottom, if it was text 1.5, in this case it's a panel at the bottom, so it's 2.5. If I wanted to put an extra stroke width on the bottom, I could put an extra stroke width on, and you can see as I'm moving that around, the bottom of the sign is going up. But in this case, I wouldn't do that, but certainly if I was doing a gantry sign, I would have put that extra space on the top. Okay, so whilst I'm talking about double clicking, I want to show you something. This is one of those features that you might come across every now and then. One of the things that's happened with KeySIGN is the ability to type text and KeySIGN correct it. I'll show you what I mean by that. Plenty of times we've learned over the years, especially in version 17, when I want a route number, I have to type a vertical line 1, 2, 3. But with version 19 of KeySIGN, I can accidentally forget that vertical line. I can just type a 1, 2, 3. It hasn't got that little gap in. Sometimes I can even forget to put a capital A at the beginning. I know I should have done a vertical line 1, 2, 3 like that. If I press return now, and return again, you'll notice that all 3 of those pieces of text have been adjusted to the correct route number. They've all got a capital A at the beginning. They've all got that vertical line, the 1 stroke width space added in between the A and the 1, 2, 3. So effectively, KeySIGN's taking over the ability of all those horizontal spacings. If I go to the help menu just to show you what I mean by horizontal spacings, there's a little help slide there. You know, there's gaps there of 1 stroke width, gaps there of 2.5, gaps there of 1.5, gaps there of 2.5, 1.5, 1. All these different spacings that are specified in Chapter 7. Press any key to restore drawing. It goes back to the drawing. All those different spaces that are done in Chapter 7. We're controlling those now in KeySIGN. I'm trying to get them right all the time for you. That's quite useful, especially with times. I know plenty of times I've come across, and if I'm doing a weighting restriction sign, I'll go for the heavy text button. I'll type something like 8 AM to, I can't remember if I've got spaces or no spaces there, so something like 6:30 PM. I can't remember whether I have spaces or not. And what size should that space be? But as soon as I press return in version 19, and return again, KeySIGN has automatically put those extra spaces in. And the dotted line is not immediately obvious on that. What I will do, if I double click on that piece of text, I'll put on the tile marks representations, and you can see the various different 1.5 stroke width gap, 1.5 stroke width gap, 1.5 stroke width gap, all the various bits and pieces that have been added in to enable the time to be spaced properly. Even though I typed it completely wrong, it's all been corrected for me. So the next thing I wanted to show you, and it followed on from double clicking, was occasionally that additional space thing, or correcting the space, might not be exactly what you want. A good example of this is something like a web address. If I was doing a traffic sign and I wanted something like www.dft.gov.uk, that's probably how I would like to see it on the sign. But if I press return and return, the first thing that happens is KeySIGN says, oh, hang on, you've put a full stop in there. you need to have a space after the full stop. So KeySIGN's gone along quite nicely and put all these extra spaces in there. You can see if I hover over that, you can see the extra space has been added in. That's not what I want. I don't want all these spaces after the full stops. This isn't a sentence, this is a web address. If I double click on this now, you can see the spaces have been added in before the D, and there's a space there before the G. But I wanted to show you this little tick in the bottom right hand corner. Well, it's a useful one for this particular sort of situation. If I take that tick off there, what it can do now is it can get rid of that gap, get rid of that gap, get rid of this gap. I think, oh, hang on, apologies, it's got a few of those spacings. It's obviously put a 1.5 stroke width gap in there. So there we are. It's now, if I've got rid of all those spaces there, that's now got no spaces in on the line that I'm typing. Auto-filing, that's not on. If I pick done now, it will remain on there exactly as typed. There's no automatic changing of that. It's left exactly as typed. So occasionally just watch out for that, especially where spaces and punctuation and commas and hyphens are involved. KeySIGN will probably say, oh, that's a hyphen, it needs a 1.5 stroke width gap next to it. As soon as that happens, you say, did I want that, did I not want that? Hopefully, the vast majority of times KeySIGN will get that spot on what you wanted. But I just wanted to show you that auto format thing. To get again, just a quick reminder, how do we get to that? Double click on the text, and there's the auto format option down at the bottom, down there. Okay, so let's go back to the sign borders again now and just show you one or two other features that have been added into the sign borders. The first thing I wanted to show you was the fact that these sign borders are called shrink to fit, or have this shrink to fit ability rather. And what do I mean by that? If I was to move this word destination and I was to move it a bit further away like that, you'll notice that sign border is adjusting itself. So I'll put the destination over here and immediately put the destination down there. The sign is being updated to wherever I put that destination. Now at the moment you can see that the arrow isn't actually being altered. It is just putting the border around wherever I put those objects. So obviously if I put that destination back above the word this, like that, we get the sign back exactly as we wanted it to be. But if I suddenly say, oh no, I want to move that up by 2 stroke widths, I'll use that up 1 button, up another 1 button. There you have, moved it up 2 now. And you can see the sign design has readjusted itself. If somebody's now saying, oh, the arrow's not in the perfect position, don't forget we've had a button in KeySIGN for quite a few years to center that arrow. You'll find it on the alignment tools. In fact, they're on the right-hand side of the screen. You may have already spotted them, but I'll show you on the pull-down menu so you can see where I'm talking about it. Center elements, center arrow, that's the one that I want there. Center arrow right down at the bottom. So I'll pick center arrow. It asks me to select the border, so I'll pick the green border there, and then it says select the arrow I want to center, so I'll select the arrow, and you can see it's now been centered on the border. So just because I updated the text, that's been moved around and recentered. Another thing that you might want to wonder about is the text down at the bottom where it says width and height. Obviously, if I'm adjusting the text, I want that width and height to update. And you'll notice I'm not doing any command at the moment. I'm just picking that blue grip, and I move the destination over to the right, and immediately I plonk that destination down there. The width and height's been updated. I'll click the destination again, move that back to the left, and immediately the width has been altered. Obviously the height hasn't, because I haven't moved it upwards. If I move it upwards and to the right, you'll see both of them updated. And it's going around, and it's updating not just the width and height, but it's updating the area as well. So all dynamically updating there for us. We can take that one step further. Just to show you, as even more involved, is this is coloured up sign. One of the things that in version 17 we pretty much did at the end of the process, because once you'd done it, there was an awful lot to undo and change if you wanted to edit something. But supposing I didn't want the destination Bury, I wanted the other way down the M66, I wanted Manchester, so I will double click on Bury and I'll change the spelling of this to Manchester. At the moment I'm up to the letter E. If I type S, you'll notice the green panel is also growing as I'm adjusting that piece of text. Not only is the green panel growing, but because the green panel's inside a black border, the black border's shrinking to fit around the green panel. So I've altered that, and you can see as I've gone along, it's altered both the panel and the sign border. And at the moment it said it's 1370. If I pick the word done, you'll notice that's now been updated to 1725. So, and that's coloured up letters. I'm changing coloured up letters, and I'm changing the panel, and I'm changing the sign border, all by just altering the spelling. So again, great advancements. Really do like some of these features that have been added into version 19. Just a little word of warning though, I must point this out while we're here. That sign is perfect on the bottom there, because the word Manchester was the biggest bit on the right hand side, and it was touching the panel, which was touching the sign border. On this particular version, the arrow's on the right, and if I decide to change the spelling now on this one, you'll notice that the panel is getting bigger, but the arrow is staying where it is, and the sign and panel are shrink to fit borders, but the arrow is not being adjusted. I can show you exactly why that's an issue. At the moment, obviously all the sign borders are these special, if I hover that still for a moment, there we are, KTS sign entity ACADs. And the sign board is just the same, it's this special KTS sign entity ACAD. But the arrow itself is just a block that's been inserted from the block library. So that's an AutoCAD block reference. It's even got the arrow, the block name, it's ARR137. Showing the block name on there. So it's just an AutoCAD block. So again, that arrow would have to be adjusted by yourself afterwards to be put in the right place. So just be aware of that. Whilst the borders might react to the contents, things that are positioned within the sign might need to be moved manually. Hopefully, watch this space in the future. We do intend to link these up, but at the moment, if you do alter things within the sign, there may be situations where you have to manually move your symbols, move your arrows into a new position. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to mention was just another little feature that's been added into version 19. One thing you may have noticed is the buttons are pretty much the same from 17 to 19. If I go to panels there, we've got a panel and an L-shaped panel. If I go to the text, we've got heavy text and medium text. We go to the block, destination block, it's there, the arrows are there. We've worked really hard to try and introduce version 19 in the same way that you've been working over the years. So as not to hold you up while you have to learn a complete new system. Every button is pretty much the same as it has been over the years. The roundabouts are just the same. The 1-stack, 2-stack, 3-stack, 4-stack borders, they're all just the same. So we don't want to hold you up to creating your sign designs. We've worked hard to try and keep these the same. But one little thing that has changed is an L-shaped panel. We've still got a button on there that'll do an L-shaped panel, but actually these days, just one step forward, you don't need to really go to there. You can just, with a normal panel, you can pick the panel, and you'll notice when I pick the panel now, there's a little light blue. It's almost diamond. If you look closely at it, you might notice it's a double arrowhead. But that allows me to tuck in the panel and turn it into an L-shaped panel. I can turn it back into a full panel as well. Now obviously on this particular sign, that's probably not much use, but you can imagine, if I do a quick copy on that, if this was to be placed next to a map type sign, we might be able to save a bit of space. So I'll just copy that from there to there. And if I go to other layouts, more layouts, that's the sort of symbol I'm thinking about, so I'm going to insert that. So I'll insert that in there. So you can imagine that if this were to be positioned in a sign, at the moment I would have to move this outwards to up there, or move it to a different position. But if I can turn that into an L-shaped panel, like that, I can then move that inwards closer over here. So I'm just wondering whether there should be some no-go lines to help me on that. If I just type no-go, I'm hoping the no-goes are going to come on any moment now. There we are. So there was some no-go lines to help me. So now the no-go lines have been turned on. I just typed the word no-go. I'm sure those of you that use version 17 would have seen there was the button just over still. That button turns the no-goes on and off, but I find it just as quick to type the word no-go. So now I can move that around, and I can put my cursor there and say, right, I want to put that exactly on that point there. In fact, for this one, because it's a panel, I'll probably need to put that on the top line, won't I? So it should have really gone on the top line like that. So I'm just lining that up with those lines, and there we are. Of course, one of the nice things like that is we all know we're not supposed to tuck this in to the absolute maximum extent. Sometimes it's useful to do, but if you only have to tuck in a small amount, then you can see how much you need to tuck in, how much you don't need to tuck in. You can move that around into various different positions and alter it to suit the best design that you want at that location. So again, that's just one of those added little bit extras that we've added in, just to make life a little bit more dynamic, a little bit quicker for you to do your sign designs. Okay, so of course in version 19.1 we've obviously added lots of other little tweaks and changes, but I wanted mainly to show you those the big bits today. The big bits were the fact that these sign borders are shrink to fit borders, and the other important thing was the fact that if I double click on that text, I've got the sign border highlighted, double click on that text, we've got these representations for the different ways of showing the text. Those are the main big changes. Whilst I'm talking about representations, the sign borders also have a representation. You can't see there if I double click on it, but it is possible to change those. I'm just wondering if that's visible on the right click. It's not on that right click. Okay, so you may find that you'll see simple, outlined and real on different parts of the menu. They're mainly to do with the text, but the sign borders do have simple, outlined and to conform to these representations. So if I wanted to change the sign border to a real representation, I'll pick the select option, and you can see that sign border's become a real representation. Obviously I should have really picked the outer border, but I can go back to that that utilities and pick real representation, and hopefully pick the select option and pick the outer border, and hopefully that'll change that to a coloured in representation as well. So those objects that have representations will have this ability to have them uncoloured and coloured, and it's really nice in the fact that you can switch that backwards and forwards so it's easily. You'll go back to simple, use the select option because I'm just changing this. The global option would change everything in the drawing, as you can imagine. And there you are, it's changed them back as well. The only thing to watch out for on that representation, so what's the difference between that and colour filling? I think you're all probably thinking now, obviously beforehand we've used colour sign, use that button up there to colour the sign. Now it looks like I can colour the sign using real representation. The one thing to watch out for is things like these AutoCAD blocks and your symbols, they won't have representations. So changing a sign to a real representation won't change things that don't have representations. So things that have got arrows and symbols in, you will still need to use the usual button that we've been using for years. If you want to colour a sign, go for the colour sign item on there, or the border fill item on the menu over there. Right, so let's just have a look at one or two other things. As time's moving on, but I've got a few other things that are new bits that have just been added in. As you can imagine, since version 17, we've been tweaking and changing and improving things. Just to show you a couple of little additions on the menu. You may notice there's this VMS text style and Kindersley street names. These are just fonts. There's no design standards to do with street names, and there's no design standards really to do with VMS apart from the shape of the lettering. So if you wanted to represent a VMS sign, hopefully this font, I'll just zoom in a bit closer so I can type. I'll type in, what height does it, I'll just press return. It's just using the dtext command here. It's not using any of our special commands. Type in some text. And you can see it's just giving you a diagrammatic image of a VMS type of lettering. Hopefully that's done quite close to how it's represented in the TSRGD. But there isn't any designs for block spacing or line spacing or things like that. it's all pretty much fixed letters that you've probably seen on the gantries on the motorways. They all have their individual box that letters go in, and it's along the similar sort of lines to that. And again, there is a street name font underneath. It is, again, it's just a font. It's nothing special in here. It's just a font. It's asking me what size I want, just as the dtext command works. And I'll put in street like that, and you can see that's been created in nice black lettering. Thanks, was it Cambridgeshire that actually managed to digitise this and turn it into a font that can be used. So thanks to them for making it available to everybody. And obviously now it's available freely. It's now in KeySIGN for you to use as well. Okay, so some other little things that's been added in. Of course, every time we have updates, there's new signs added in, just to show you some signs that have been put into the library. A lot of these are probably put in for the new TSRGD. So if I was to go for browse regulatory signs, you may notice one or two new ones have been added in the menu. If I go across to, I'm trying to find one that has it, there we are. These particular ones here, those are new ones that have been added into the system. So if that was, I was going particularly through this tunnel, and it's got an E category for the type of hazardous vehicles that can go through the tunnel, I would put that particular sign up. Just to show you another particular sign that, and one of the things that often fiddled with on in version 17 was to do with weight restrictions. And the sign that I'm going to use, I'm hopefully going to type with my fingers the word sign, which allows me to type a diagram number. I've got diagram number 626.2a. That's the diagram I want. And it's for either a wheat bridge or a wheat road. So I've got a wheat bridge, and then you've got various different choices for the weight limit that's allowed on there, because it can only take vehicles up to a gross weight of 10 tons, otherwise the bridge will shake a bit too much. And that comes in now with that 10 tons in there. Previously in the library, it could have been a lot of fiddle and exploding and altering things around. Now, as you can see from that command, we get a choice of what type of weight limit it is and what type of sign it comes in. And you'll notice actually after the sign's been brought in, it's been brought in as two separate parts. It's sort of a sign with a hole in, which I can clearly put the roundel back in there, hopefully, if I can move my mouse smoothly. Gets put in there. So just little tweaks like changes like that. I know another thing that we got, just to show you how little and tweaks and changes we put in. One of the things was somebody was asking, why can't we have 5 lines in the no loading? They had some old classic no loading plates where they had a Saturday morning restriction as well. So you needed to put the word Saturday into there, and you probably needed to be something like 8:00 to 9:30 a.m. on the Saturday. So so they had those loading plates. We won't have a waiting plate anymore. So pick draw. Oh, needs a reference. Put a reference in there. Pick a point on the screen for the loading plate, and hopefully that will put in the loading plate, and you can see just have that extra line available. Just a small little change like that, but it makes life so much easier when you can put in the full loading ban. Oh, I should have picked loading on that plate on there instead of primary. So if that, by the way, that's if you want to change that sign, although that sign there. So if I right click on that, there is a change sign colours, and currently it's primary. If I wanted that to be loading and parking bays is the one that's listed, pick OK, and that's changed that to the other type now. So so hopefully that's just a little bit extra. I didn't intend to show you that, but go on the outer border of the sign, right click on it, and there is a change sign colours, which you could change it to tourist if you wanted to, or whatever else is on the list. You can see it's changed it straight away to tourist. If that was a red route, you can see it's got a red border with a white inside. But in this particular case, loading's the one, so we'll click OK on that, and it's updated the colours to that. Talking of red routes, that was another thing that's been added in over the last couple of versions. So again, just another little quick thing. We go to auto parking, and if we go across, you know, I'm sure you've seen this before, where you can pick this slider and go across to other types of weight and restriction plates. And over on the right-hand side, I'm hoping towards the end of this list, there's going to be, as I keep going across there, there's a red rope sign there. So I'll change that reference to 2, pick draw, come across, find a nice bit of space on the screen, and let's put in the red route. Do I want to add an exception panel? No, I won't bother with that, but of course it allows you to add other panels underneath. But I'll pick no, and I'm hoping that's put the 2 stacks around there, red route at the top, no stopping underneath, and I'll pick OK, add the details underneath. Just make sure, yeah, it's got red route, it's got X height 30, that all sounds good to me, so I'll put that in, hopefully put those details underneath as well. So again, other things that have been added in over the last few updates. There is one big one that we've added in, actually, on the very recently, on the one that was released last couple of weeks. And you'll notice that as well as the sign tools and the sign help, there's this KeySoft 3D tab that's appeared on the menu. And this has been merged into version 19.1. It's a routine that you'll also see in KeyLines or in KeySignals on the latest versions of KeyLines and KeySignals. And it allows us to create a 3D sign. I've got over here, I've got a sign that I've took into KeyPost at some time. There's the sign face that we've done in KeySIGN. I've took that across to our KeyPost program, and you can see there's the results of the from the KeyPost program, where we've got a nice little image of this. But one thing that I want in this particular drawing is an actual 3D object with 3D foundations and 3D poles of the sign. And that's exactly what this 3D sign wizard. So this is quite a new feature, so I thought I'd take this opportunity to show how this works. Hopefully, if I pick that button now, wait a moment, there we are, this pops up on our screen. Gives us 2 ways. We can manually say how big we want the sign and poles and types of poles to be, but because I've done this in KeyPost, I'd like to just pick this KeyPost option and say just use the ones that I've done in KeyPost. So we'll go for that KeyPost option. I've got various different signs here in KeyPost. I don't happen to want that one, so I'll go back. I want to do that one that I've done there. I think I called it KeySoft 1 when I did it in KeyPost. There you are. You can see there's the one. So if that's the one, I'm happy with that. So I'll pick the finish button, and it says, do you want to draw that in 3D? So yes, I do want to draw that in 3D. So I'll pick that button there to draw it. It asks me for insertion point. Now do bear in mind that obviously the background of this graph paper is in stroke width. So if this sign's 2 meters across or 3 meters across, that's only going to be 2 or 3 stroke widths on the screen. So so do bear in mind when you think, oh, it's coming a bit small, it's been drawn in meters. Most of our base plans are in meters. Which way do I want the sign rotated? I'll rotate it that way, like that. And do I want to change the visual style to shaded? I'll pick yes on that. You'll see why when we change it to shaded. But there you can see the sign. It is quite small, but it is the exact size in meters on that screen. And obviously the first thing I'm going to type is orbit, because I want to see it not just from the top down view, but I'd like to see that in 3D. So there we are. You can see now as I'm moving that around using the orbit command, you can see the size of those foundations, you can see the lattice posts. They are done as 3D objects. You can see the back of the sign, you can see the front of the sign. The sign's actually been created as an image and added to the 3D object that is the sign face there. And you can see, I zoom in, you can see the lattice detail on that. It's actually quite pretty, that, isn't it? So and you can see there the solid foundations all created at the bottom. So in no time at all, really, just picking the results from the KeySIGN wizard. So I'll pick exit on that just to show you a different sign. I had no idea which one to pick, but I'll pick the KeyPost. I'll pick one of these. I'll pick finish on that one. I'll draw that one and pick an insertion point on that and rotate it. And hopefully, even though I'm in 3D, I've clicked an insertion point there and rotating it, and it should be creating those 3D objects as we speak. Oh no, it's still asking me to pick the rotation. I wonder what it was doing then. There we are. As soon as I actually click the rotation, you can see this one is at 2 signs on a set of posts. So if I was again to use orbit, so you can have a better look at that as I orbit around. I'm trying to do orbit. There we go. I'll orbit this around now. You can see. Hopefully it's not too jerky on the webcast, but you can see as I'm moving that around completely in 3 dimensions. And you can even see there how the foundations are below the surface as well. It's quite a good way of seeing how the foundations are slightly below the surface to the correct depth. Everything's drawn exactly, and they are a very nice looking 3D image of the sign. So that's a nice little extra that's been added on there. 1 or 2 other bits and pieces have been added on, as you can imagine, but hopefully that's giving you a feel for all the new things that have been added into version 19. So if you have only just recently had version 19 installed on your system, or maybe you know your IT is coming around in the next week or 2 to install version 19, it's giving you a good feel of all the extra bits that's been added in. I'll just take that back to the plan view now, and hopefully that has given you a good feel for the various different bits and pieces that's changed. As I said, the one thing that is, from my point of view, I hope that you've got the appreciation that whilst a lot of things might have changed in the background and the engine in the way KeySIGN does things, the actual bits that you have to do, they are still the same buttons. The arrow buttons are still the same, the destination block buttons still the same, the medium and heavy buttons still the same, the border buttons are still the same. So hopefully, as you're doing your sign design, you'll be doing it in exactly the same way you've been doing it for years, and it'll all be created in exactly the same way on the screen, but the engine behind has been advanced quite significantly.